You always been this popular?
Well, I do seem to attract the scum of the earth. No offense.
None taken.
When you think of video game fictional treasure hunters, you probably think of Lara Croft. Well, this isn't her. This is her male counterpart, Logan Croft. Or wait, no, sorry, this is Nathan Drake. When I think of reasons why I switched to PlayStation from Xbox, a few names come to mind. Kratos, the hunter from Bloodborne, and of course, Nathan Drake. Uncharted Drake's Fortune is a 2007 action shooter and sometimes platformer developed by none other than Naughty Dog. Now, I grew up on Crash and Jak and Daxter, so I'd call myself a longtime fan of the studio, but surprisingly, Uncharted is nothing like those games. Well, aside from a few rage-inducing platforming sections, if there's only one thing Uncharted does well for Naughty Dog, it's that it really showcases their range. I mean, this studio can make some awesome platformers, some engaging stories, and really an amazing cinematic experience with fun gameplay. Through the remastered collection, I am so grateful to have the opportunity to discuss this game with you all today. Well, let's not delay. Let's further our trip into the treasure that is Uncharted Drake's Fortune. Really quick, there will be spoilers for the plot of the game in this video. You have been warned. Also, please be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video. Thank you.
Oh, man. This is like trying to find a bride in a brothel.
The gameplay consists of your stereotypical video game characteristics, which is why I consider Uncharted the video game. It has shooting, climbing, puzzles, parkour, and pretty much everything you expect from a video game. I mean, if you want to get your friend into gaming, this is a great place to start. Hell, it even has costumes. I would say the combat is one of my favorite parts of the game. You have a host of different weapons to choose from that make sense in different situations, such as a sniper to combat enemies coming in from far away, to a shotgun to fight, well, whatever these I Am Legend things are in this tight room. Yeah, this section is super tense, but nothing a couple of shotgun shells can't fix for you.
We're dead! We're all dead!
You always have a sidearm of some sort, which is usually a type of pistol or a mini SMG, and then a heavy weapon, which can be a shotgun, AR, sniper, or even a grenade launcher. The weapon variety is simple, but this game definitely inspired some shooters we know and love today, as the simplicity is great and on higher difficulties can provide quite the challenge. You can also just run up on people and beat the daylight out of them, which is fun, but definitely not advisable on higher difficulties as you get dropped in one shot a lot of the time. Speaking of difficulties, there are a couple different difficulties to choose from for the game. You have your basic easy mode, all the way up to brutal and crushing, which are pretty realistic to real life, as if you get shot, you're done. You pretty much have to go through the whole game avoiding even getting hit once, which can provide a really good challenge if you're into harder video games. The climbing is a lot of fun. Some of the most memorable parts of the series come from the climbing, though I will admit the first game had some jank to work out first, as the hardest part of the game to me is trying to get Drake to jump where you want him to. He's extremely uncooperative at times, and for some reason thinks jumping off a cliffside is a better alternative to progressing to the next handhold in the natural path. I don't know what you're thinking, Drake. Maybe it's just depression and he's tired of all this adventure. Happens to the best of us. There's some pretty awesome climbing sequences like the fortress where you climb the outer wall of a huge fortress structure to break in, and it just feels fluid and awesome. I especially like the swinging vines that allow you to wall run while clutching for your life, and they definitely provide a non-superhero Spider-Man feel. Or as IGN would say, they really make you feel like Spider-Man. Anyway, there's no denying Drake is an absolute Chad, despite some jank, and I really love, despite how old the game is, how good it looks, and the feeling of climbing a crazy structure or blasting my way through waves and waves of enemies. Well, except the water room. Worst room in the game on brutal difficulty. If you know, you know. What's up with games from this generation having a soul-crushing water room? I mean, Resident Evil 4, Uncharted. These are the games responsible for everyone hating water levels today. Straight up PTSD. Anyway, the gameplay is fluid and engaging, and there's nothing like absolutely breezing through a level once you get the hang of the gameplay. But we aren't just here for the gameplay. Let's discuss the story.
Yeah, I'm afraid this is as close as we're getting to El Dorado.
The game begins with our hero Nathan Drake on a boat off the coast of Panama with his definitely not love interest friend Elena, where they have discovered the coffin of Drake's ancestor, Sir Francis Drake. Inside the coffin, Drake finds a diary. I guess somehow the coffin was waterproof, that tips Drake off that his ancestor must have been part of a crew that sought to find the lost city of El Dorado. Hey, I know what that is because I saw the DreamWorks movie. Well, the Uncharted games have a pattern of having our main character searching for actual locations depicted in legends, so if you're a history buff, you'll definitely find some intrigue in these. Anyways, after Drake decides to abandon the reporter slash not love interest Elena in pursuit of the riches, our charming playboy main character heads to a remote island with our old friend Victor Sullivan, or Sully for short. No, not the big blue guy from Monsters Inc., though I'd argue this one is as lovable, because who doesn't love Sully? Anyway, after fighting our way through some tricky puzzles and platforming and a little exploration of a Nazi U-boat, I smell Nazi zombies coming. We encounter the game's primary antagonist faction, Gabriel Roman, Navarro, and their henchmen. Well, Sully kind of assumed quite a bit of debt and tipped Roman off about his hunt for riches, to which Roman decided he'd rather claim the riches for himself, and we see him shoot Sully right in front of us. You cold bastard. We were just starting to love the guy. Well, Elena shows up just in time, though a bit upset, which is understandable considering we ditched her in a random port in Panama, and with her, Drake flies to the island where he believes El Dorado is being held. Of course, the plane gets shot down and we get a pretty awesome action sequence of using some questionable looking parachutes, and oh crap, we've been separated. Don't worry, this isn't the last time Drake gets separated from his pals. It's a bit of a recurring theme in the series. Well, now we have to save Elena and find a missing page we had in the plane that should guide us to El Dorado. After a couple of tough fights, Drake reclaims the page that somehow survived all the fire from a plane wreck, and in trying to save Elena from some henchmen, gets captured himself by Eddie Raja, who seems to be a bit off his rocker. I mean, he gives me some serious Voss from Far Cry 3 vibes, but he functions more so as a violent rival to Drake.
How much trouble could one girl be?
Well, come on!
Thank you.
Anyway, Elena once again rescues Drake, and they travel through a customs house to find that the statue has been moved and Sully is alive. I remember my first time ever playing the game, I was somewhat questioning if Sully was secretly a con artist working against Drake, but looking back now, I'm sorry I ever doubted you, old friend. Well, Drake, rightfully so, refuses to believe Sully has stabbed him in the back, and shortly afterwards, Drake and Elena rescue Sully, who explains he survived due to Drake's diary taking the bullet for him.
Alright, so how is it you're standing here breathing and all, huh?
You are not gonna believe this. Huh?
No way. Old Francis took a bullet for you.
Yeah.
I thought this kind of thing only happened in the movies.
You know, Drake, I call a fourth wall break here, but this did actually happen with Teddy Roosevelt, interestingly enough. Well, Sully says he's been misleading Roman to buy his time, and after a few more gunfights and puzzles, we overhear Roman talking to Eddie, and discover that Eddie is claiming the treasure is cursed, and there's more than just Drake taking out his men. Well, no bother, I'm sure that won't come back to haunt us later. Roman fires Eddie for letting Drake escape, sorry Eddie, and Drake and Elena locate the body of Sir Francis Drake, which causes Nathan to become a bit disheartened, thinking his ancestor died for nothing. We run into a terrified Eddie, who is fighting off some of those weird, mutated, cursed humans. Whoa, looks like Eddie was onto something after all, and despite our best efforts to save him, Eddie is killed by the ongoing fight with the Beast. How sad. Also, considering all the German stuff around, some of these are Nazis for sure, even if most are Spaniards, so I'm gonna count this as part of the Nazi zombie cliche. Sorry, not sorry. Well, Nate and Elena escape the monsters, and then we find ourselves in what I like to consider the scariest part of the whole trilogy, because this really starts to feel like Dead Space for a bit. That's right, the game wants us to turn on a generator, and anytime a game's ever asked me to, oh, just go turn on the generator, there's always some scary stuff that attacks while it's taking its sweet time to power on.
Thank God.
This is no different, as of course we are ambushed by non-stop waves of the monster zombies, and it's dark and creepy, and we have to navigate a maze while running away from them, and can we get out of here already? Well, Drake's gotta watch a little short film first that shows us that Francis Drake actually had tried to keep the statue on the island by destroying ships and flooding the city, but eventually he too was killed by the mutant monsters. Nate returns, but of course Elena's been captured, and now we have to fight through a pretty awesome section against the mercenaries and mutants, who are also fighting each other, and man, it just feels great. Once we finally catch up to Navarro and Roman, who are holding Elena hostage, we're too late, and they've already found the cursed statue. Navarro kills Roman after letting him get infected, then decides he still wants to take the statue to sell because, well, it'll catch a pretty penny according to him. Gosh, these bad guys are such idiots sometimes. They never care about how dangerous something is as long as they get paid. Well, we want to stop this before it becomes Resident Evil, so Nate rides the statue to Navarro's boat, where after a crash landing, we chase Navarro down and finally end him for good in a rather satisfying way, plummeting both Navarro and El Dorado to the bottom of the ocean. Oh, and of course we end up in love with Elena because everybody saw that coming a mile away. It's what's right for Drake, and I'm happy for the two. Well, Sully gives us a ride off Navarro's ship, and of course our old pal managed to snag up a hefty load of gold on his way out. So even though we didn't get El Dorado, we prevented a Resident Evil world from becoming reality and made a nice buck off our trip. I'd chalk that up as a win. While Uncharted may not seem groundbreaking, I think if you consider the time it was released, it had a huge impact on video games as a whole. The whole cinematic experience, while also having some rather fun gameplay, was somewhat new at the time, and many games followed suit in some way, shape, or form. The story is pretty straightforward. We have our dashing, charming hero that seemingly can do everything, and of course his love interest against some greedy bad guys. But somehow, it feels fresh and still holds up extremely well to this day. I think the lore of El Dorado being a real thing and the slight sci-fi twist of the curse make the story much more entertaining, and I genuinely didn't see it coming my first time playing, as I figured Uncharted was rooted in realism. But I knew no human could make the jumps Drake does, so I should have known there'd be mutant monsters cursed by their greed. Anyways, while the story isn't necessarily groundbreaking, I think considering the time it was released and providing the cinematic action in a gameplay format, provided just what the video game space needed to advance to a lot of what we see today. Uncharted Drake's fortune is, if anything, a game changer, and you can still see a lot of its influence in video games being released today. If somehow you've never had the chance to play this game, do yourself a favor and channel your inner Indiana Jones, because this is one ride you don't want to miss. Thanks for watching.
You still owe me one.
I'm good for it.
If you enjoyed the video, please make sure you like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out. Thank you again. Until next time.